I'm lonely. Now, it's up to you to take that away. I'm depressed. I'm depending on you to help me get over my depression. I have sexual drives. I'm depending on you to fulfill those drives. I want children, so I'm depending on you to sort of do that. And on it goes. Are relationships for that? Or are relationships for joy? Pure, unmitigated joy.
Well, hello, friend. This is Heartbeat, the podcast, featuring insights taken from the more than 50 years of work done by our friend Landon Saunders. Today's episode is lifted right out of the latest update to the Heartbeat app, a course entitled The Significant 7 Keys to Fully Living.
Now, we're ready for a big question. The big question is, this is one that's taken for granted all the time. What are relationships for? What are they for anyhow? Have you ever asked that question? The most important questions in the world somehow never get asked. We just assume, well, we know what they're for. Do you? I suspect that there are several people in this audience who's never asked the question to start with. You think you know the answer. And you have some sort of an answer that you'd give, and your answer is wrong. And that's one of the problems with your relationships. We're just getting, I can say anything I want to say because this is free. Now, we're asking now, what are these relationships for anyhow? Are they for your ownership? Are relationships for ownership? When you marry, do you own your husband? Do you own your wife? When you have children, do you own your sons and your daughters? Do you behave toward them like they're your property? Does one human being ever own another human being? When you get a good friendship, do you think you own that friendship, that person? Now we're going to get even more ticklish. Do you think you own the people who work for you? We could have talked all night without saying that. Do you think you own these people? Do you think relationships are for your use? You say, well, I'm in some where they believe that. That you just use them? You use them for whatever you want to use them for? You use them for your benefit? You use them for your desires? Are we creating all these relationships for our own personal use? What are relationships for? Now, I'll tell you what I think they're for. I think relationships are basically for your joy. That's what they're for. Relationships are for joy. Now, that's way down there somewhere. You say, well, but Landon, we are helped by relationships and, it helps with our loneliness. I know all of that. But that's part of the problem, because sometimes while we think that's what they're for, you don't get it. That's not what you get out of it. Now, if you do, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You'd probably pull out the word blessing to describe that. But so often, that's not what we get. And it may be that I am coming at I'm lonely. Now, it's up to you to take that away. I'm depressed. I'm depending on you to help me get over my depression. See? I have sexual drives. I'm depending on you to fulfill those drives. I want children, so I'm depending on you to sort of do that. And on it goes. Our relationships for that, all those things are involved. Or our relationships for joy, pure, unmitigated joy. We need to work on the relationships. And the word work gets into relationships. What if we substituted or replaced the word work, which hasn't worked very well, with play? If relationships are for joy, maybe relationships are also for play. Instead of working on your relationships, what if you played at your relationships? It'd sure be more fun, wouldn't it? Not so much for work, but for play. That relationships are made for enjoyment. They are made for delight. In my own father's case, my own father was not blessed with a lot of education. He was not blessed with a lot of training. Never went to a parenting class in his life. There were times when I might have wished he had. There was a lot. He grew up without so many advantages. His own father was one of the most difficult men that I ever met. I was scared to death of my grandfather and learned that he literally chased two of his sons with a pitchfork once. Now, whether he would have used it or not, I don't know. But they certainly ran like they thought he would. And though I loved him, but I never, ever understood that man. And so my father didn't have a great role model. But you know what my father did? He played with us. And he found a way to make sometimes the most difficult things playful. We worked. He believed in work. He believed in the value of work, and we worked very hard. But I will have to say that my dad must have gotten up earlier in the morning to find ways to turn that work into play. I could tell you the stories for an hour of little situations, hard, menial tasks, that he somehow was finding ways to bring the delight and to bring the laughter. I think without playfulness, my childhood and growing up would have been vastly different. Now, is that just something that's peculiar to his personality? I don't think so. When he walked in, I remember they moved away from this little town where there were so many chemical plants in West Virginia, and they bought this little farm that was way out from town. I mean, you went out to the blacktop, and then you hit the gravel, and you left the gravel, and then you hit the dirt, and you left the dirt, and then you hit the creek, and then you went up on the hill. We lived so far out of town, we had to go toward town to hunt. And out there in that situation, one morning after we'd moved over there, he had a good job. It was warm and well-dressed, good-paying job. And about 10 o'clock one morning, he walked in the house. And Mother said, "Robert, what are you doing here?" Oh, he said, "I quit. Quit my job." She said, of course, that's panic time. She said, "You quit?" He said, "Yes, I quit." And he said, the kids are growing up, and I want to be with them more. I want to be with them. Well, what are you going to do? Well, we're going to cut the timber off this place first. And for the next few years, we cut the timber. We had a little dairy. We had truck farming. We raised chickens. And then he became a builder, and a good one. You say, well, but not everybody can do that. No, that's not my point. I'm not using that as a model. I'm only using it to sort of illustrate. We go at this thing that's called life sometimes so hard. So hard. So hard because somehow we get our own little vision of our life and our own wants and our own needs, and then we just go driving down through life, and the things that are most important of all sometime they strew our path. When if I could just realize that relationships, that they're not made for work, they're made for play. Husbands and wives must play together. And they must know that as long as they're not hurting each other, it's all legitimate. That we play together, and that our children do better when the parents know how to play with them. Oh, I have such wonderful stories of these playtimes. My father broke his little toe once chasing us in the house. You say, well, maybe we should know more about your father. Well, not really. All I'm telling you is that there's a way to go at life that isn't so hard. Take it easy. Let off a little bit. Ask and be certain that as we're moving along the way, on our way to whatever our goals may be, that when you have to sacrifice the things that you're going to regret the most in the last years of your life, that kind of living has a kind of insanity about it, doesn't it? Now, let's go to some successful attitudes for a moment. What are some successful attitudes that I can bring to a marriage? And these are our values and attitudes that can help. Let me give you a little list of these. First of all, remember the value of a human being, and that value is not based on their performance or lack of it. That a human being, as we were pointing out last night, has inherent value. Now, I think it'd be a good thing sometimes to teach this value to your children. If you would perhaps tell them sometimes, say, kids, guess what? And kids love surprise. And they're going to say, what? Listen, something unbelievably grand is going to happen in our house on Friday evening. What is it? What is it? What's going to happen on Friday evening? Oh, something really grand. Something that hasn't happened in this house maybe for a long time. Something wonderful is going to happen. Well, what is it? What's going to happen? Listen, when this happens on Friday night, you're going to be so thrilled. You're not going to be able to believe it and just keep going and just build it until they're just about to burst. Something wonderful is going to happen in this house on Friday night. And when they can stand it no longer, say, we've invited a human being to come for dinner. And we need your help. We need your help to make this dinner and to make this night grand for this human being. Will you help? Because a person is the most important thing in the world. And this particular person is one of the grandest individuals in the world. Or this particular person has been hurt a lot lately, and they need encouragement. And so what we want to do, we want this to be a real red carpet affair. And you may want to dress the children up and put them in their best clothes and let them be waiters and waitresses. And you may want to light the candles in celebration of what? Just in celebration of a human being. What are relationships for? They're for joy. Remembering Now, if you sleep with someone who snores, you may have to just lie there and keep saying over and over, valuable, they're valuable, they're valuable. You know? Now, they do have a little electrical wire that you sort of put around the neck and plug in the socket. Now, the problem with that is you want to turn up the electricity sometimes too much. Or when somebody, a grown adult, rational, sensible, intelligent, leaves all those little toothpaste mints in the sink. Can't that be distressing? Grown people that might leave their underclothing on the floor. It can be so distressing. So distressing. The value of a human being. You got to remember that a human being is the most important thing in the world. Now, they're valuable. Because they're valuable, they're the most important thing in the world. That nothing is as important as another human life. Oh, if we could get this into all of our lives, the incredible importance of just a human life. And if this could become our style, to look at people and to relate to people, knowing how incredibly important they are. And not to wait until it's too late. Not to wait. Don't wait. Don't wait. And then another successful attitude is to think of relationships, because they are difficult, as something that you have to invest in. You just have to invest in. If they weren't important, you wouldn't have to invest so much. But you invest heavily in your relationships. I bought a car, and I picked the car that I wanted. And I took the car that I was driving in, and I said to the person, and I lived in this town and was going to obviously get the service from the dealer that I bought from. And so I said, this is the car I want. This is my car. You think it over. Do right by yourself. Do right by your company. And put on this piece of paper the difference between my car and this car, and I'll tell you whether I'll do it or not, and you get one shot at it. Now, I'm just playing. And so, well, no, we'll negotiate this. We'll deal with, no, we won't. You know, I want you to be fair to yourself, be fair to your company, and do your customer the best you can do. That's all I ask. Well, it took forever. But finally got a figure. And I looked at the figure and I said, okay, I'll do that on one condition, that you add $50. And at first he said, no, this is the best we can do. See, he was so accustomed. And I said, no, I want you to add $50. And if you'll add $50, well, we got a deal. Because I want you taken care of, I want your company taken care of, and I want the customer taken care of. Well, I don't have to tell you that I got wonderful service. Did you ever go through a toll booth and pay the toll of the person behind you? The race is on. You know, you're going down the road, and here they come, and they're looking over, and they're trying to think, who in the world? You know, and they're thinking they may know you. Just pay the toll of that person that's behind. You say, well, I've got a son. How am I going to invest? He won't clean up his room. You know, the room is terrible, and you say, well, you know, rooms aren't. Yeah, but this room is. This room is not only messy, it smells. You know, I have to keep the door closed. You know, we wouldn't dare, when I have company, you know, I wouldn't dare let anyone go in there. You get a disease if you go into this room. And I've just tried and tried and tried, and we're not even on speaking terms right now. They weren't on speaking terms. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, why don't you tell him that the room has to be cleaned up? And either he has to clean it up or you have to clean it up, one or the other. And if you have to clean it up, you want to be paid. And if you give him an allowance, then say, I'm going to take so much out of your allowance for cleaning up your room. You know? And then take it. You know, your work is worth something. Just take some allowance out. And then after you take some allowance out, if it goes on a week or so and he doesn't make any move, give yourself a raise. You see, the whole point is that one day, before you can turn around twice, you're going to hear that door click. And that same lad is going to walk down that walk and get in that car for the last time as your son that lives under your roof. And when he drives away, you want to be sure that he drives away with a memory of a mother and a father to whom he can return at any time, no matter what he does, forever. Because life out there can be very dangerous. You want to invest in a home that your children can come back to. Invest. And then watch expectations. An attitude with lots of expectations on it's not a good attitude to have. And so try to lower those expectations. Someone said, no human being has a right to hold any expectations for another human being ever. I believe that's true, but I think it's awfully hard to grasp. Now, a couple of practical tips and we're through. First practical tip is, remember in relationships the power of the words, I'm sorry. I'll tell you, they're just magic. I tell kids when they're into it with their parents, well, just go tell them you're sorry. Your parents will it'll melt them down like warm ice cream. You know, they're not accustomed. You'll shock them to death. You probably have to have smelling salts to bring them to. Tell them that you're sorry, that you just messed up, you forgot. If I had the power to do anything in this audience that I could do tonight, do you know what I would do? I wouldn't have to think that long. If I had the power, I would forgive every person in this audience for every regret and failure and mistake that you've made. Forgiveness is so powerful. I would just walk among you and I would say, I forgive you, and you're forgiven, and you're forgiven, and you're forgiven, and you're forgiven. It lets you go on with life. It's a practical thing, but it's magic. Human beings need it to get on in their relationships. And then, don't forget the sense of humor. When things get hot in your house, be sure and remember, instead of just staying there and fighting it out, leave. When it gets dangerous, just walk out the door and slam it for emphasis and then check your watch. And wait 30 seconds. Don't go back too quickly. And don't wait too long. And then at the end of that 30 seconds, you go back and don't walk in, knock. And when that other person comes to the door, before they can say anything, you say, wow, am I glad to see a smiling face? You should have seen the person I just talked to. Now, see, what are we doing there? All we're doing is sort of breaking this thing up just a little bit. Every family needs a stick with a white flag on it. And when things say, excuse me for a moment, and go and get that stick and just hold it around the corner and wave that white flag. This is Secretaries Week. Secretaries sometimes can have a real hard time because sometimes they might have a boss now and then they don't know how to treat a secretary. The secretary told me, she said, my boss is always on my case. He's always just getting on me and yelling at me and screaming and saying, why did you do that? Why did you do that? She said, I don't know what to do. I said, well, the next time he does it, you just look up and say, I do it because I'm incompetent. Well, a few days passed, and I saw her again, and she said, you know, my boss did it again. Jumped over me and said, you know, why did you do that? And just screaming and yelling, and why did you do that? And said, I just looked up and said, I'm incompetent. And he said, oh, no, you're not incompetent. You see. You're always late. And they say, why are you late? Why are you late? Well, you got to have some way of dealing with that. The next time it happens, you tell them, you say, I'm so sorry, but I was on my way and I saw someone and I stopped to tell them what a wonderful person you are, and it just made me a few moments late. We need lots of this going in our relationships. I knew a man who would, when he put his little daughters to bed at night, he would tell them stories. He would say, now, did we have any fun today? And they would say, well, Dad, yes, we had some fun today. We did this and we did this. Yes, he said, we did have fun today, didn't we? What about tomorrow? And he plays this little game with them. Do you think maybe we should try to have some fun tomorrow? Or maybe should we skip a day? And the little girl's eyes were bright, and they sometimes would sort of play along, and they said, well, Dad, maybe we could skip a day. And then very quickly, no, I really think we should go for fun again tomorrow. You know? Have we had any delight today? What are relationships for? In the midst of all the problems, your life still has great capacity for joyfulness. Be joyous. The plea tonight is for life. The plea tonight is for the life of the person you're in relationship with. The plea tonight is for your life. The plea tonight is for your children's life. It's for your friend's life. It's for the business's life. And the way we go about this life is to understand centrally what human life is about. And human life is about joyfulness. And human life is for joy. And relationships are made for joyfulness.
Well, if you enjoyed today's episode, and it's taken from The Significant 7 Keys to Fully Living. It's the latest addition to the Heartbeat app, and the app is available on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, or you can find out more information by visiting thisisheartbeat.com. There are 7 lessons just like this one. This is Heartbeat, the podcast, is made possible by Friends of Heartbeat. And they invite you to visit the website, thisisheartbeat.com, where you'll find out more about the app as well as other information about Landon's work. Until next time, this is Heartbeat, the podcast.